In my family, success was always supposed to be loud. It showed up as large houses, luxury cars, designer clothes, and long conversations about promotions and profits. Every gathering felt like a competition disguised as dinner. I never joined that race. At family events, I was the quiet one. I drove an old pickup truck that rattled when it started. I wore the same brown jacket every winter, the one I'd owned for years. I didn't talk about money, and I didn't compare myself to anyone else. They called it simple. Sometimes they called it sad. Behind my back and occasionally right to my face, relatives joked that I hadn't really made it. That my military career was respectable, sure, but not exactly impressive. Not profitable. Not exciting. I didn't argue. In uniform, you learn early that not every comment deserves a response. Things got louder the night my younger sister Elena announced her engagement. Her fiancé Mark was confident, well-dressed, and clearly proud of his success. He spoke easily about investments, travel, and future plans that sounded expensive. At the engagement dinner, the table buzzed with talk of careers and earnings. Then someone turned to me with a polite smile. "So," they asked, "what are you doing these days?" "I'm still serving," I said simply. A few quiet chuckles followed. Someone joked that I must still be struggling. Another said I probably couldn't afford dessert. I smiled faintly and stayed quiet. They didn't know where I'd been. They didn't know the weight of responsibility that came with silence. They didn't know that some professions don't reward you with applause, but with trust. Years earlier, after serving in the Army, I had transferred to the Air Force. My work involved long missions, longer nights, and responsibilities that never showed up on social media. I flew aircraft most people only saw in documentaries, planes that never made headlines, jets that moved quietly before the world understood why. I never talked about it. You don't talk about things you're trusted to protect. Dinner continued until Mark leaned back in his chair, smiling casually. He had just returned from a business trip overseas on a military-chartered flight. "Funny thing," he said, looking around the table before his eyes landed on me. "I heard your name at the airbase." I looked up. "They said one of the jets parked there is assigned to you, a long-range military jet." The table went silent. Someone laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke. Mark shook his head. "No, really. That's what they said." I didn't rush to explain. I didn't correct him immediately, because the truth was simpler than they imagined. "It's not my jet," I said calmly. "I don't own it." I paused, then added, "I fly it when the country needs me to." No one laughed after that. The energy in the room shifted. People looked at me differently, not with admiration, not with envy, but with understanding. They didn't clap. They didn't apologize. But they finally understood something they hadn't before. Success isn't always visible. Some people build wealth. Others are trusted with responsibility that doesn't belong to them but must be carried anyway. In the military, you learn that early. You don't measure worth by what you display. You measure it by what you're trusted to hold. I left the dinner the same way I arrived, quietly. But for the first time, they didn't mistake my silence for failure.